All right, welcome everybody. This is the to the continuing committee's third broadcast in our period of review. This is the Omnibus period of review covering the chair, I guess, chair emeritus now, executive officer, chief financial officer, Department of Communications. Sorry guys, I'm getting a weird feedback on my, oh, I see what happened. All right, and sorry, I had gone to get the link, and then I was hearing myself in my ears as I was talking, so I apologize for that snafu, everyone. So we've got, so anyway, covering Department of Communications, Department of Operations. So I have invited guests who have had questions directed to them at the period of review, and who in the Omnibus thread on the period of review forum. So let's go ahead and welcome all of our guests here. So I will start with, I will go ahead and start with Charlie Plain here, now our chair emeritus.
Hello, I'm Midnight Lich on the forums, and as Maggie said, until recently I was the chairman of the continuing committee until we eliminated that position. But since I held it over the past year, I'm here to talk about anything that people have questions about.
Good, then let's go ahead and with Justin Ford, CFO.
Resistance is futile on the boards. If you don't know me, I've been busy the last couple of weeks here. I haven't been posting much.
All right, Daniel Madison, Director of Communications.
Hello, OK Coyote on the forums, Director of Communications, Acting Writing Manager.
And we also have Chris Lobin here today.
Hello, I'm Mailwise. I'm the Chief Programmer, and I don't know, I've been around for far too long.
And I'm Maggie Geppert, JADZIADEX 8 on the boards. I am the executive officer now and current chair. So I'm just going to put that out there. The chair is now a functional, is more of a functionary position, meaning that my job as chair is to basically chair the board meetings, make sure the agendas get out, make sure the meeting minutes are available to the public, and to run the board meetings. The chair's position is also the tiebreaker between directors when we have any sort of issues between departments and different departments under different directors. Then I will act as the arbitrator of those sorts of disputes. And so the bylaws now have us have our organization structured as 7 directors who are working together via their different departments. All right, so just putting that out there, and and don't forget, period of review voting is going to start February 1st for everyone who holds a premium membership. So please, if you have an active premium membership, do make sure that your email addresses are up to date so that you will be able to receive the invitation to vote from eBallot. All right, guys. So thank you, everybody, for coming on. Thank you to the folks who are watching along, commenting in the chat room. Hi, Ben. I think you're and Amber, you guys are the ones who are not on the broadcast that I can see who are in the chat room right now. So let's go ahead and get started with some of the questions here. And and I should make note, I do apologize to everyone. Chad, 7 of mine, had a family emergency crop up at the very, very, very last minute. That is why we are going to run today's period of review as an omnibus, or our omnibus edition as a roundtable discussion. So I apologize for those of you who want a host who is a non-CC member. I've gone ahead and curated all of the questions that I could find from the Omnibus period of review thread, and so I apologize for the lack of an independent host here. I will try to exercise journalistic chops when if I can. So the first thing I wanted to ask everybody here, and we're just going to go around with everyone, that there was a really great set of questions from Mogor on the boards. 4 questions that were just sort of general, and I wanted to ask everybody if you could address these questions. So the first one is, what have you done this year that you feel contributed most to the community? So maybe I'll start with Charlie on this one. There's a set of 4, and within your role as chair for the last year, Charlie.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So
I'm having some internet trouble. So.
Oh, okay. What have you done this year that you feel contributed most to the community? And then the follow-up one is, what have you done this year that you feel was most destructive to the community?
I mean, I think the whole process behind the bylaws and formalizing the board of directors was sort of a process that I began and then Maggie took across the finish line. But I think that's the answer I have to both questions, in that it's formalized the power structure and created a situation where there are department heads that have key control of their departments without somebody over them meddling. So it's sort of empowered people to make the decisions they need to make, and given a fair and consistent structure to the organization. But at the same time, whenever you make a big change like that, there's an inherent amount of chaos and destructive energy, because you're literally tearing down an existing structure and rebuilding it. But ultimately, I think the bylaws and the board of directors and sort of that top level reorganization has been and will be a great positive for the community, but it hasn't been without challenges that have some growing pains there that have been a bit destructive in places. That's what I think.
Okay, so and then also, so I'll ask the 2 follow-ups on that, because this one's kind of interesting, looking to the future and looking at the position of chair. If you could do any one thing to improve your area of responsibility, what would it be, and how would it impact that area of responsibility?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, given that the chairman, as has always existed, is no longer in existence. And the chairman role now is really more of a mantle that goes over another position. So it's really sort of tough to say what would the chairman add going forward. But I think just the biggest thing for all the board members, but particularly the leadership, the person who holds the chairman mantle and the executive officer, and really all the directors, is just communication and public engagement. There were some people that were unhappy that I didn't play Trek much at Gen Con, and initially I was a little indignant about that, because I pay a lot of money to go there and I wanted to do other stuff. But I understand the point where me being down there and spending some time talking to people would have gone a long way for a lot of those players who were there and didn't get to see me. So I think a priority for all the board members, but particularly whomever the chairman is and whomever the executive officer is to make oneself available to people, both at events and then, the chairman. I used to do a monthly hangout on Google, where I would just sort of ask people questions and have people come on the show and talk about whatever. And I think something along those lines, as long as you can get, as long as people have the chance to participate, I think is key to the leadership positions.
I will take that under advisement and have an executive officer monthly bitch fest. I'll advertise it that way. All right, Justin, why don't you go ahead? If you want to take those first 2 questions, what have you done that you feel contributed most, and what have you done that was most destructive?
That second one's going to be a hard one, actually. I mean, the first one, we've done a lot of change over the last year, getting everything squared away with an entity, so we're able to pull the organization away from being linked to Charlie and all of his personal information. That's still a work in progress, but I know it's going to probably, I would imagine, is a leg off his shoulders, because now it's not all on him personally, liability, because we have an actual organization. Destructiveness, I call me naive, but I don't think I saw much negativity on the boards over the last year surrounding the financial reports coming out quarterly, monthly. I started doing an article monthly and switched to quarterly, and that probably was the only negative thing I could possibly think that our trolls could latch onto, but it was a lot of work, and being able to provide good information, good explanation, good review. I figured that a quarterly, give more time to be able to put things together, get numbers together, would give more quality work out. But I think, we are a work in progress. We still have a long way to go. This next year, the financial accountability piece and the audit piece, I want to get that in place in the next 12 months, so we can have that further trust, have an independent review, and be able to do that. And that is really the last piece of the puzzle. And then we're basically set with the bylaws adopted and everything. So been a good year. Going to be another good 12 months moving forward.
Good. And actually, you took care of question 3 too. If you could do any one thing to improve your area of responsibility, that would certainly be it. Like getting the audit committee up and running. What kind of things do we need to do, Justin? So the last question of the 4 is, what outside factors have impacted your area of responsibility? So I guess that does lead us to, what do we still need to do to get that to get those financial controls in place? So if you could tell the rest of the community about that.
Working on getting the bank account open for the organization has run into its own its own snafus. I anticipated a lot of them. I was going off of what the bank that I work for, how our procedures are, but I should have realized not every bank is the same. And of course, in this climate with AML, BSA regulations, and being in multiple states and needing multiple people on the accounts, it's a little bit tricky. And so that's running into snafu. But I think with that'll go hand in hand with the audit committee. We'll be able to have that audit done on the account, and we'll be able to track the money each month or quarterly, whatever we decide, the board decides to be the frequency of the audit. What's left is changing over the name on all of the accounts to the continuing committee, since it's an actual entity now. So we'll be able to change the name on the website to the TrekCC, and we'll be able to change I think the only other one is our stamps.com, our shipping account that we have, so Dan can buy his postage, getting that switched over, and then making the switch on the merchant platform. Because one thing I have learned dealing with a lot of different merchant platforms in the bank, merchant platforms are great, but they don't offer a lot of the same securities that a bank can, because they're not regulated to the same degree. And so being able to, the fraud protections that a bank offers, there's stricter and more regulated and intense fraud protections for a bank. And so being able to run transactions through that, so say if we make a purchase to stamps.com and their account gets hacked, and somehow our information gets leaked and money gets drained, I'm not sure what the recourse we would have on the PayPal end if that's where the money was leaked out of. But on the bank end, it's fraud, and the the money gets credited, investigated, and we can recover our funds a lot easier. And so that's going to be a work in progress, as you saw in the last board meeting minutes. Hopefully we can have more details, I don't know, within the next 3 months, I hope, to the general public.
Yeah, Justin and I will be working on some of that stuff sometime today. That we already agreed to do that. So for our listeners out there, we are working on that. Daniel, why don't you go ahead and if you wanna go ahead and jump in on those questions. If you want to start with what have you done this year that contributed to the most?
I saw Maggie. Sorry, I saw Charlie's question.
Oh, Charlie, do you have a question?
Fraud.
You're muted.
I just asked in the chat room because I didn't want to interrupt, but like, how much fraud have we ever been victim to?
I mean, we're in the financial sector. I tend to think of worst case scenario. With everyone's hard earned money that they put in to get their foils. That they donate. That we want to protect that as much as possible. Worst case scenario. Obviously, we probably haven't had fraud, like in the broad sense of money being stolen from the CC. But what if it happens? What can we do to safeguard all the money? And so we don't disrupt the organization. And so it's just a worst case scenario, and protecting, trying to eliminate any possibility of losing funds and then end up in a pickle asking for assistance to keep the website up, and so stuff doesn't go down. So I wouldn't say really any fraud since that I've seen, but it's a worst case scenario situation.
Thank you. Just looking. All right, nobody in the chat room's followed up on that. All right, Daniel, you want to go ahead and address the first two questions? What have you done that you feel contributed the most, and then what was most destructive?
Well, okay, so I just I'm still within the first year of this position. I took it in March, so and kind of went in with a lot of vacant positions in the department. Just kind of had to cover everything for a while. So really part of the big thing that happened this year was hiring Austin Chandler as the new social media manager, and getting him used to the system. And he's really taken the ball and run with it, and taken a lot of work off my plate. And Mike Shea's been doing a good job as the new chief ambassador, who he was hired like right before me. So, I mean, aside from new hires and just kind of redelegating some things, I can't say there's been major changes aside from that. There's definitely things that I want to get working on. And I have some projects in the works, but right now, the very next thing is getting the writing manager position filled, which, fingers crossed, is very close. As far as destructive, I can't say I've done anything that, I mean, like other than walking into a Gomtu shockwave or something like that. I can't think of anything I've done that's been destructive to the organization. I mean, I'm always concerned that I feel I'm not doing enough. So I mean that maybe that's me. Maybe I don't know. That's always a big thing with me, is I feel like I'm not getting enough done, or I'm not finding the time to take on the projects I want. Sorry, I have a cranky cat sitting on me.
Well, that's okay. Hello, cranky kitty. All right. So then, if you could do any one thing then to improve your area of responsibility, what would it be, and what do you think its impact would be?
Yeah, like I said, it's the one thing I want to do is I'm working on it getting all our positions filled and freeing up my plate some and just being able to take on new things and try to make some changes. Aside from that, I think the department is doing all right. The ambassador program is that's one that is being worked on right now. That is being changed. Michael Shea has been going through the program and identifying, which regions need to find new ambassadors, and looking at, we talked about this in the last board meeting. He's been working on that. He's been working on new reward programs for the ambassadors, and so he's already making changes at his level. Austin has taken the social media and he's been starting to change things, to fit his own personality, and they're individually, they're doing a great job. And so I'm going to keep promoting them and continue to work on what I can do on my end to help them. But like I said, I've also got some projects in the works. I've actually started working on videos again, which I didn't think I would ever get to. I've got a big mess of unedited videos right now that are not finished, but you may see that soon. But yeah, and this isn't related to my position, but I'm running online events again. Like I'm trying to make more time and make myself more available in the community. So I hope that somewhat answers things.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think that the last part, what outside factors have impacted your area of responsibility, I think you sort of touched on that already with the just needing to hire up, to get that writing team manager in place, which will allow you to have bigger projects available to you.
Yeah, I had a period where, and just there was a lot of outside factors, but I had a period where I was just kind of chugging along and was not really, knowing there was stuff I wanted to do, but not really feeling the motivation to work on it and not finding a lot of time. And I'm trying really hard to turn that around.
All right, Chris, then let's go ahead and turn to you. So in the world of the website and programming, as our chief programmer, what have you done this year that you feel is most contributed, and what has been most destructive, if anything?
Well, this year, I guess one of the good things about the website is I feel like once I built it to a point that didn't need as much constant ongoing maintenance because all the basic systems were there. So as a result of that, plus a combination of personal factors, I don't feel like I did that much constructive this year. Probably the most constructive thing I did was bringing on James Heaney to help out when I didn't have the time or energy to actually get anything done. Because he has been fantastic help, and it's good to have somebody else around that can take care of the quick little stuff when I don't get to it. The destructive side of that would be that I haven't had the time or energy to get to as much stuff. So I know there have been emails and messages that have gone unanswered for far too long at times. A lot of that was because I had a number of personal and professional changes this year, which kind of threw me off, changing jobs a couple times, and sort of, threw off my mojo. Not only changing how I was able to use my time or how much time I had, but also just how much energy I had for it, and just adjusting to the new norm definitely was a challenge at times, with trying to still make time and to find the energy and motivation to sit down at my computer and actually do stuff. So I know that's been definitely an issue this year. I think I'm getting into a good place again now. Just I was telling Maggie right before the meeting started, I just launched a new website for the state police here. So it's nice to actually go through on a full creative project like that again, and I think it sort of gave me back some of get my creative juices flowing again, and doing website design and getting paid for it is always nice. So hopefully if this job keeps going, if I can stick with it, and then yeah, that should sort of free me up a bit, both time wise and mental energy wise, and hopefully going forward I'll be a lot faster again on responding to issues than I have been in this past year.
Yeah, I know. There's the ongoing the ongoing. Could you process my online tournament results has been at times vexing. So hopefully that will be that won't be something that needs to happen. And in fact, that was a question later on for you about that. So I'll wait on that. All right, and then I will, and I think you addressed some of the other two questions in your answer there as well. And I'll go ahead and I will answer these questions for myself. And what have you done this year that you feel contributed most to the community? And I think that the obvious one is getting the bylaws written, working with Justin and Charlie to get the CC as its own entity, and writing the bylaws and running that through. I've also been organizing monthly board meetings for the board members. That's been going regularly. I think since we've had one every month since July, and I'm happy that we're going to have those public from now on. Also, other big things that I did, the Spotlight series. I was really proud of the warm reviews I got, although I wish more people would have read things, but I was really pleased with I did get some compliments on the Spotlight series, and I think that went well. And if you have been watching the Spotlight videos, please forgive the first few ones because they were terrible. Awful. And I think things got better by the end there. And so those are some of the things that I feel that I contributed most to the community this year. And as to the second question, what have you done this year that you feel was most destructive to the community? And actually, my answer for this one is not from 2018. I just found out about it a couple of weeks ago. This was actually an issue from 2016, and I owe the Russian play group including Andrei Larin personally, a huge apology for. It wasn't ignoring; it was forgetting. So after after Ross was hired as the second edition brand manager, there were a number of concerns about that hire. Andrei PM'd me about his concerns about hiring Ross in that position, and I told him that I would write him a letter. We would discuss that issue personally, and then that's where my PMs with him end. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I never responded to him. And when I learned just a couple of weeks ago from one of the other players that I had done that, and I knew that the Russian group had gone away, I didn't know why. When I learned that it was something that I had done directly, that I felt, basically I was sick to my stomach for 2 days straight and didn't sleep. because that was one of those sorts of things happening because of lack of communication issues in the continuing committee was what drove me to apply for the vice chair position in the first place. So the fact that I did that to somebody else, I'm absolutely disappointed in myself, and I owe, as I said before, I owe the Russian 2E player group a huge, huge apology, and I know that that doesn't make up for 2 years of miscommunication and missed playing time. I don't know if you guys are gonna ever come back, but I just wanted to say that publicly, that was something that I did, and I had said to myself I wouldn't do when I was vice chair, and then I went and did it. So I don't know where to stop now. So I'm just going to end with that. I guess if I could improve my area of responsibility, what would it be? I mean, I think that any improvement in faster communications, better communications with community members is better. One of my area of responsibility is definitely organizational. So, as I'm the point person for communications. So I need to make sure that I am better with communications, and so. I think that if I could improve things better, it would be, and this sort of hits my number 4. If I could do any one thing to improve my area of responsibility, it would make the private message system better in the message board, because it's very difficult to work in it, and I try to delete private messages as I'm done dealing with a situation, but my PM inbox is currently 15 or 16 pages long, and I try, but it takes a lot of time. I can't just search for things in there, so it's difficult. So that would be the thing that the outside factor that impacts my area of responsibility the most. I've been trying to work more in email when I can, because that's a little easier to deal with. So those are my answers to that questions. Any comments from anywhere? Amber suggests we need a mark as unread button in the PM. Monty says he was just about to make a real bad Australia joke, but so not sure where that's going. Okay. So comments, questions about that, guys? Anybody in the chat room? Okay, so then let's see. The next thing on here is kind of similar, goes along with what me talking about bylaws just a second ago. What do the powers that be expect will change after the bylaws are implemented, particularly around so-and-so didn't do the thing in exactly the way I wanted it, so I will dedicate my life Batman style to raising this issue at every opportunity until I make them quit and preferably cry while they bemoan why didn't they listen to my brilliance discussions that are so popular this time of year. Thank you, Alan, for that very colorful question. I think that having an official outlet in the bylaws for we really will talk about this during the period of review is a good thing. I think we also put in, and I should have pulled these up. I meant to pull these up before the broadcast started. I think we put in, Charlie, remind me, Justin, did we put in a section how officers can also remove their director?
I know we talked about it. I don't know if it made
it in there.
Final version. So the thought here was. Sorry, go ahead, Meg.
No, go ahead.
Thought here was if, for example, this is an example, I become the director of First Edition and immediately start trying to do a bunch of stuff that is destructive to first edition. Rather than wait a year for me to come up for review, the idea was that there would be a process by which the officer levels, so like the creative director and the rules master and the errata master and whomever else, could go to the executive officer and say, this is a problem that needs to be dealt with. And essentially not get them fired, but at least go over their head to raise a red flag and potentially get the situation dealt with. That was the idea. Unless I'm misremembering.
No, that was pretty much what I remembered. And now Justin and I were working on them a few weeks ago, and I know we were talking about it, and I forget what exactly. There's just been so many changes. I forget I know we put something in. I know we were talking about it, and now of course my computer's just sitting here like blah. No.
Under 5.8, it says any director may be removed for cause by unanimous vote of all other directors then in office.
Okay. So
that basically covers it.
Yeah, that is. I think that is it then. So if we have enough, if we're hearing from the people in that person's department saying this person is not doing what we need them to do, we can remove them midstream instead of just during the period of review. All right. So hopefully it's having an outlet, a legitimate, codified outlet will, I don't know if it's ever going to stop the vigilante hounding that some other people have gotten in the past, but maybe that will, or maybe I'm just an optimist. I don't know. All right. And along with that, what steps have the CC taken since the last period of review to increase transparency and communication with its player base? Well, the transparency part is in the bylaws. I mean, we've been I put those out for review starting back in late November. Getting people out there saying, "Hey guys, this is what we've been working on." For my part, I don't remember anything like this happening when we did, for instance, the Forum Code of Conduct. I just sort of remember that one day the code of conduct was there. Now that could just be because it was 2015 and I had, and I wasn't paying attention because I had an infant. But I may be misremembering. But I think that that's an area where we have improved. That we're putting these things out there. What do you guys think?
I agree. I mean, we've done a lot over the last year to get a lot more out to the community.
Yeah, I mean, Justin's been doing his quarterly financial reports, which we never did before, and that was always a big, concern from a portion of the player base is where's our money going? So that sort of reporting is there. There is some areas where we have fallen down. So for instance, this example was given about, I just now basically in the Omnibus period of review announced that Stefan Alhoff had to leave the director of operations position before he really even got started. And I hadn't made a public announcement about that. We hadn't done an immediate search for it, so it was that was a failing of mine, and I think part of that was just me. I was trying to figure out what the best time for that was, because I'm trying to do the bylaws and trying to get all of the things in place for the period of review when that was going on. So that was certainly an area where I fell down, not putting that out there. Any other things thoughts you had on that?
Am I muted? No.
No, you're on.
I think, outside of these departments, other individual departments have done a lot. On the 1E side, there's been semi-regular status reports about where all the projects are in the pipeline and what's going on with them, and when there are delays, what the reasons. On the 2E side, there have been similar status reports. I think the one thing that's we haven't done well with is Tribbles. I'm actually going to lobby if I become the director of First Edition. I'm going to lobby to get Tribbles moved under the First Edition so that there's somebody who's in charge of it. Because right now we don't really have a Tribbles brand manager, and I don't think we need like a whole dedicated department to it. But maybe a sub department. Maybe there'll be a Tribbles manager under the director of First Edition, or it just gets rolled in. But yeah, I mean, I think the ambassadors are going to be ramping up a lot here really soon. I think Daniel being in the director of communications role. Well, that's another big thing. Social media over the last 2 years became a huge way we were communicating more with people and engaging. And that's a large part due to Daniel and his efforts. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does as DCOM to continue that. But I think in general, we all recognize we needed to do better. And I think as a whole, the organization has improved on its communication. That doesn't mean we can't be more. But I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody that has been working on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, as communications director, my department doesn't always have a lot to report on its own, but that's because the department's job is reporting on what everyone else is doing. So that's definitely something that we've come a long way with over the last year, 2 years. Is we try to, as much as we can be, we try to get transparent with everybody about information as we get it, and get it out to people. And no, I do not have a tail.
Yeah, that was cracking me up. I was just going to go make a comment on that in the chat board. All right. So actually, and Charlie, since you mentioned it just now, Brian Sykes did ask about Tribbles. Do we have new Tribbles on the horizon?
The fact that we didn't have any last year is a big regret of mine, and one of the reasons I want to have somebody who's in charge of it. I mean, Dan has sort of been lead Tribbles designer, but he's been very busy. But really, I'm going to make a public appeal right now. If you play Tribbles semi-regularly, if you're willing to, like, 1 out of every 3 or 4 times you play Tribbles, do some play testing, contact me, because that's the big thing. Is I don't want to just release Tribbles into the wild. I want to get them play tested. And we are definitely planning on getting one thing out this year because of the 25th anniversary of 1E. That's this year. So Tribbles is a part of that, even though it didn't show up 3 years later. But I have playtest Tribbles on my desk to cut out so that we can playtest with Chris, Andrea, and the kids. I just need some more people to do that, and then we can get some Tribbles out this year. So if you're willing to volunteer, Brian, if you play Tribbles with the kids and I can send you a file of something to play with, hit me up. Anybody out there, we'll get some play testing, and then we'll get some new Tribbles out.
And that brings up a good point too with Tribbles. I know it probably doesn't belong in this thread, but just had a random thought. The Tribbles side deck in 1E, how can we bring that back into the local OTF tournaments? I don't think anyone's used it really often. So Tribbles are neglected on both 1E and Tribbles.
Yeah, but they suck in 1E. Nobody wants to use them. That's like asking, why isn't
that in 1E, I want to walk away.
why isn't the Q Continuum deck back? Because it's terrible and nobody wants to use it. That's why.
That's true.
So, Chris, actually, I have a question for you, kind of a follow-up that has to do with communication. TK wanted to know about his Discord channel, and Alan asked if we were going to push to advertise the CC's Discord server in the next year, and to address Alan's question first, I think it would be foolish for us to try to compete with the dojo because it has so many active members right now. So, Chris, I'll ask you: do you know of any ways that we could, if how the technical issues about, just generally speaking, about Discord with our website?
Yes, that is something I have been looking into. When Stephen originally came aboard as director of operations, he had actually set up a Discord channel for Star Trek CCG. I think it was basically for Trek CC, even though it wasn't officially sanctioned by us at the time. So when he came aboard as director of operations, we briefly talked about making that the official Discord channel, and then he quickly disappeared as director of operations, and which was probably about the same time that TK started his Discord channel, which quickly became far more popular. Partially,
Yeah, the other channel's still there. It's just not used very much.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of that is because we just never really advertised it, and even Steven never really advertised it when he was setting it up. He posted about it a couple times, but then his other life issues got in the way, and so he didn't really maintain it or advertise it too much. So I said at the time we had been talking about incorporating that Discord channel into our site. It never really went anywhere between Steven's personal issues and time issues and my personal issues and time issues. Nothing happened with it. But I have actually just in the last couple weeks, I think, reached out to TK about integrating the potential, at least, of integrating his Discord channel into the site. There's a couple technical hurdles that have to be overcome before we can go through with that. I have found a Discord bot that somebody has made to let you embed your Discord channel onto a web page in a way that does allow users without a Discord profile to still use the channel, which was the first hurdle we wanted to do to make sure that we weren't forcing everyone to get Discord to use our chat. So anybody would be able to go to where our chat link is right now, would go to an HTML page that you could log in without a Discord login. And then the second, which I haven't really looked into much yet, but I'm sure should not be as hard to overcome, is going to be putting some sort of bot in that will be able to replicate the functionality that I have customized into our current chat room, namely the ability to pick random drawings for raffles, because right now probably 99% of our chat room traffic is for raffles, and the other 1% is for the period of review, I think. So I want to make sure that we're not losing any of that functionality if and when we do move over, so that Dan will still be able to do his random drawings of participants currently present and anything else that he needs to be able to do when he's running the raffle. So if we can overcome all those, if I can find solutions for all those, and then if TK and I together can find solutions to all those, then we will probably bring it to the board or whoever wants to be in charge of that without a director of operations to ask if that would be something that we want to go through with, and then we'll try to get that to replace our current chat room and hopefully make it more viable, more usable going forward, and more populated going forward.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so let's see, what do we have here? So next one on here, where does the moderation team fit into the new org structure post bylaws? Presumably they'd report to operations. This is a question that I started addressing in the bylaws, and I can see looking at them that I did not fully address this issue, but I think it's something that the board needs to look into, and we can make amendments to it. I did put in a section 9.4.9 for who the moderator team is. Right now it says it's an independent group of at most 6 individuals whose job it is to moderate the discussion forums on the Trek CC website. They enforce the forum code of conduct and are bound by the rules laid out governing their behavior on the forum. Right now, I don't have them reporting to any director, officer, or committee member. And Alan has commented that this is worrisome to him. So I'm not entirely certain where to put them, because the point of having the moderation team is that we don't want directors coming in and saying, you need to go and ban this person because I don't like them. So.
No, I agree. I mean, I think I agree. Like, we want, because along the lines with the audit committee, the moderating team probably needs to remain independent. So they're I mean, possibly maybe hold the moderator team lead accountable for if they fall against or violate bylaws, statutes, as the point of person, responsible for the moderator team. But largely, they should be independent, I think, as you said, to have that transparency, but with some limited accountability, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a question we want to work with. I'm going to work with Brian on this question in the future. I mean, one thing that I do know for sure, if nothing else, we need 3 more moderators. We only have 3 right now. So if you're watching this broadcast, please, and you're not currently volunteering for the continuing committee, please consider joining the moderator team. It's a thankless, horrible job, but somebody's got to do it. Well, I'll thank you for doing it, because it needs to be done. All right. Okay, so next question on here. Besides, I have a Monty 42's sock puppet. The community are a bunch of wuzzes. Daniel, are you going to take that under advisement?
Consider it addressed.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, that was from the thread. Should we stop giving people who don't play these games and don't travel to do so jobs in this community? My answer to that is it really depends on what position you're looking at, and I think that was addressed by a number of people in the thread. But if anybody wants to jump in on that, go ahead and do so.
I think. I think traveling is a personal choice. I think if you want to make it a family vacation to coincide with a Trek adventure, or you want to go spend a weekend at a Masters, it should be your choice, because we shouldn't be forcing anybody to spend their money on Trek. Obviously, if people like Gen Con, for example, it's probably cheaper for, say, Ross to get to Gen Con versus, say, me or Charlie or somebody from Europe to get to Gen Con. Just geographical scenario. Highly encourage, if they can make it work. I think it's probably the right way to do it. And then there's more than one way to be active on an event. You don't, whether you go, you can provide the support remotely. For people boots on the ground, you can give them the support that they need. And so I think highly encourage would be that. I don't think we should require it. I don't know. Anybody else's thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that being an active player helps you if you want to be in design, or if you want to be in organized play, or or if you're on rules or errata, maybe that's more helpful. But if you're doing proofreading or creative, those sort of things, no. Okay, so let's see. I don't know. A couple. So there's sort of a. All right. So the last couple of questions. We had one last question that was sort of a general one. How many volunteers and players did we lose because they weren't listened to, given a voice? How many potential players we would have now if perhaps things would have been different? anyone not feel a bit pained to see the player map and realize how many people were registered on the site and they haven't been at a tournament in years? And yeah, so that's that's leading out of the last question. This is the next one that I found in the period of review, and it is hard to see people who leave, and I really can't answer that first question of how many volunteers and players did we lose because they weren't listened to. I don't know every single story of why every single person stopped playing around here, or that's one of those questions, like it's hard to hard to prove a negative if you were. How many potential players would we have now if perhaps things had been different? I don't know. It does hurt me to see all of the names. Like the other day, I go on. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed. I go on every single day and I look to see if it's somebody's birthday. And when I do that, I go and look at all the names whose birthday it is, and I look at when was the last time they were active on the site. If they were active within the last couple of weeks, I'll shout them out a happy birthday. But I did, there are some times where I'm like, I did Bubba Joe the other day, Justin Beal, and he hasn't been on in ages and ages, but he was a big, big player back in the day. So, it does hurt to see all of those people leave for whatever reasons that they have left. So I don't know if you guys have any comments on that.
One of the reasons I wanted to switch to the board model and not have the chairman is in charge is because I got so busy, and then I think Stefan Alhoff this happened to, is like I got so busy that I couldn't really spend the time I needed to get them up and running in the position. And this happened with Kieran too. They just kind of joined up and then didn't get worked with and didn't get supervised, and then just sort of was like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, among other reasons. That's a big failure on my part. So it was one of the major reasons I wanted to switch to the board model. So it was like, cool, you've got this position. We have a board meeting in a month. Come and we'll talk about what you need to do and you need to be thinking of, and then it's kind of your responsibility. You don't have that person above you who's looming large over you. So the problem with that question is literally nothing is that simple. Like, I'm sure that there are players out there who will be like, I stopped volunteering or I stopped playing because of this specific decision. I'm certain that that is true. But I think the majority of the people that have stopped playing or stopped volunteering is they're getting older and their life is changing. They had kids, or they got a new job, or they moved across the country, or they just got into another hobby. I mean, most of us don't have the same hobbies now that we had 20 years ago, except this game. Or, there was a culmination of factors. I think it's John Corbett, actually, who says that when people sort of rage quit, it's the reason they're giving for why they're rage quitting is the excuse or the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like, I'm quitting because this, but most likely that person was already waning interest in the game. And I'm not trying to throw shade here, so please don't interpret it that way. But my point is, it's a complex web of factors why people stop playing and stop volunteering. And to make it so reductive to say that the CC did this, so people are stopping in droves, I think is unfair and frustrating. Now, we can certainly learn from mistakes and learn from decisions where people do leave, and we absolutely should try to re-engage with people everywhere we can. That's a big failing of this group, I think, is that we're not doing that as well as we should. But ultimately, people are going to leave for a number of reasons, and I don't think a particular decision is going to be the key reason why people leave. There are always going to be exceptions to that rule, but. And in another alternate reality, the game did really well and got really popular, and we got shut down by Paramount or Decipher. And then in another alternate reality, the game did really well, and we made enough money to buy the license, and then in another alternate reality, the CC never even existed. So I mean, that way lies madness if you let it. All we can do is listen to the players that are around, listen to the players that left when they reach out to us, and do everything we can to sort of retain, keep people involved and bring people in, because the games are still really good. I don't think first edition has been as fun as it is over the past 5 years ever. And 2E is still really fun, and Tribbles is a blast, and we always have a great time when we go to Gen Con or other big events. So the game is good, and it's cheap and easy to get into. I just think we need to sort of promote that more and make sure that when people come to the website and join the community, they have a good experience. I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah, one of the things I really want to, in that vein, one of the things I really want to do for this upcoming year is work more on getting things good for beginning players, new people who come to the website, because we have new people that I don't think that all of them are bots who register regularly. To have a place on the website where it's like, hey, beginners, this is these are all the resources for you. This is where you may want to check out what you may want to check out for first edition. If you're interested in second edition, here's this stuff. So that's something that I've been thinking about bit by bit for the last year. All right, so I think the last couple of the last few things that I had here, the questions that I pulled from the thread, mostly were directed the last couple. So I have one. So Chris, I already hit you with the awaiting processing question, but you might know some more about the achievements question for Rogue. Could there be more regular updates of achievements? Like an article or a forum post. Could you tell the community, remind the community what's up with the technical issues with achievements and how I know you guys have. I know mostly it's been Marcus Eberline. So Marcus, shout out for that. But tell us a little bit more about what's going on with achievements, if you know. Oh, Chris, you're not muted?
Yeah, I was muted.
Oh,
okay. I
have
a hardware mute on my headset.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm kind of detached from achievements right now. I overdosed on them in getting them set up in the first couple of years, and they, living and breathing achievements for so long. I kind of detached after that, and then James and Andre jumped in and started working on it, and then Andre left, and then Marcus, as you mentioned, jumped in to start working on that. And yeah, James has basically been handling a lot of that, managing to try to get anything done on that end. And I know he's still having some of the same behind the scenes type issues that I was having with them. And it is just, it's a slog. It's no matter how many times and how many different ways we've tried to make them easier. It is not easy programming. It is not easy. Just as any particular part of the setup is not easy. So yeah, as I see Amber in the chat room asking forum posts or articles when new ones are released. Yeah, that's definitely something that comes back to the communication issue. And I think because getting the achievements done has been such a piecemeal effort recently, I think that's where the communication has fallen apart. So yeah, I think we need James and Marcus or whoever's working on them at the time to make sure to report back to Rogue to coordinate with him when something is actually ready to go live, and get Rogue to make a quick post about it in whatever media, just to keep everyone updated. And I think that's something that we need to work on communicating better with internally, so that Rogue can communicate better with that externally. So yeah, we'll make sure we suggest that to him if he's doesn't get a chance to watch this broadcast later.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the very last question that I have was for Dan Hammond. Last year, Dan said he needed more stuff, better stuff. I forget the specifics to do his warehouse job better. Did he ever get what he asked for? Why or why not? And the thing. Oh, Charlie. So I was gonna address it, but Charlie can too. You're muted.
Oh, that's fine. You can address it.
Oh. I was going to say the thing that Dan needs more than anything else in terms of the warehouse is time, and he's been his job has had him traveling. This past summer, as far as I understand it, he was traveling Monday through Friday, every week for like 2 or 3 months straight. Like it was
Poor
insanity.
guy being forced to fly to Hawaii for work. Jeez, what kind of inhumane people!
And he had to come here and get fed. I mean, it was terrible.
It was literally Dan would be traveling, would come back on Friday, and then they'd turn around and go on a weekend trip for Cordelia to play baseball for a while.
Ooh.
So he was gone, 5.5 to 6 days each week for a while. That's over for the most part, but there was a big period of time where that was a significant problem.
So maybe
I'll just put it out there. I love that his daughter's name is Cordelia. As a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan.
If it's not actually a reference to that, but if you ever see Dan, ask him to tell you the story about his super Italian grandfather not understanding her name. Because Dan tells it better than anyone else could. So if you see Dan,
I shall make note of that for when I'm in San Diego in March.
I mean, maybe also, Maggie, since we have our production facilities, and once we get the last one up and running with having 4, maybe it's not a bad idea to have a second person shipping things to help Dan, so Dan doesn't have to ship everything.
There's advantages and disadvantages to that, and it looks like Charlie had a comment there too.
Well, yeah, I think that's a separate problem, because the real problem for Dan was, as I understand it, it's fairly easy for him to put on some music and print off some orders and go to the warehouse and bang them out. It was a significant problem when Dan was the only one working to make foils, because we used to get 7 or 8 people up to Dan's place for a 6 to 8 hour scrapbooking party, and then the last few of them in San Diego were like 3 or 4 people. So the first problem was obviously solving the production issues, and I worked with Dan and I sort of managed that project, but we now have 3 production groups, including San Diego, plus 1 more that's close to coming online. I think what we should do is solve the production issues. So make sure that the warehouse always has a nice stock of stuff. And if we're still then running into shipping delays, then we can reevaluate that problem. If it's still the problem that Dan can't keep up with shipping, then we can look to open up a second location. I've considered for years opening up a European warehouse where we just do a semi-annual bulk shipment to Europe of, here's a bunch of stuff, and then the Europeans ship internally to save extra shipping fees to a degree, but that's a separate issue. I don't think we need to set up a second shipping, because there's a whole different set of expenses and logistical issues with that. So let's see if we can keep production up, and then address the shipping problem if it's still a problem over the next 6 months. But anyway, if you didn't know, we do have 3, almost 4 production groups up and running, and we're keeping up pretty well. There's a whole bunch of tournament kits on my desk here to get done, and then we're going to do more, and then we're going to be working ahead. So the goal is by the end of April to have 30 or 40 units of the next set of tournament kits already put together and on the way to Dan.
Nice.
All of the OP promos are going to be done by mid-May, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm hoping that my mail delivery today will have a package from St. Paul, Minnesota, with shiny stuff in it. I saw that there was a print that ran through, so I don't know if it got shipped off before this weekend. I hear there may be a Klingon in there. All right. So any
I think Brian had a
I think
question
there's
from
one
you.
final question from Amber. Is there thought to requiring CC members to reply to PMs within a certain amount of time? That's a tough question to answer because there are some of the CC members who have who decline to participate in the message boards due to the climate on the boards, which has been especially an issue lately. And I don't blame people who don't want to come on.
But I think part of the problem there is, and maybe this is a bigger discussion, but I'm not sure that our forum software is keeping up well with what we're trying to do. Like, I've heard multiple complaints that Rogue, for example, would subscribe to every thread about achievements, and then within a week was unsubscribed from all of them. So he wasn't getting email notifications. And people aren't getting email notifications when they're getting PM. So, like, people are going out of their way to get messages when things are hitting them, and for whatever reason, they're not. I don't think it's a case of I'm not going to the site and I'm not doing anything to check my messages. If that was the case, that would be a problem that we would have to address. I think it's more of a technical issue. So I'm reluctant to require people to do anything. But like, if you are going to have a position, you need to be responsive to people. So if there are technical obstacles, then we should probably fix those before we implement policy obstacles.
I do know the forum notifications or PM notifications. Gmail defaults them to go into your spam, and so they don't go to my inbox. They're all in my spam, and so if you have Gmail, that's where those go. Or if there's something we could possibly do to maybe, I don't know if we can figure out a way to. It's not going to work probably. So it's in your spam if you have Gmail. If that, yeah, it's annoying, a little annoying, but.
Yeah. And Marcus just asks, is anyone from the programming team reading the trekcc.org forum tracker thing? And Chris says, honestly, he forgot he had implemented it. And yeah, so I'll read off Amber's here. If you're a CC member, please, check your PMs regularly and please reply to them. I guess, for my part, I use I do use Tapatalk on my phone. So if you've got a mobile, we do have Tapatalk available as a overlay. Is that the correct term, Chris? It's an overlay for our site.
That's an app. Yeah.
An app for our site. So you could use that for forum PMs and never just have it on, have it set that that's the thing that you see. It goes to your PMs first, and then you never even have to look at the rest of the site.
Well, but this is where I think Amber's idea earlier of having the ability to mark a PM as unread comes in handy, because I know Tapatalk, if you click on it at all, even by accident, it marks it as read in the forum software. So if you then go to the website later, you don't see that you have a PM, and if you are on your phone in the car and you read it and you don't have the ability to deal with it right now, it'd be really nice if there was a way to like click it to say, mark this that I have to effing deal with it, and then so the next time I go to the site or open up the app, it's still there. So I think that's a good suggestion from Amber.
True.
Yeah. I know, Maggie, there was a question that was asked earlier to you, and I don't know if you saw it. But,
I did not. I have been flipping between the questions in a Word doc and here, but I didn't see it. Do you know who asked?
The question was, have you tried reaching out to the Russians directly?
Well, this was brought to my attention by Alexei Korolov, and so I have been talking with him about it. And one of the things this weekend I wanted to do was PM Andre about it personally. So this broadcast came up before I got a chance to do that. But yes, the reaching out to the Russians is on my list. Alexei basically told me that we're dead Yep, we're dead to most of them, but I don't think that may necessarily be true. Especially because Andre has built.
Say.
What's that, Chris? I'm sorry.
Said that's not the kind of thing you ever want to hear a Russian say. Plays into every stereotype in bad movies.
Yeah. So I mean, I will. I am gonna reach out to Andre directly, and I don't know if that's gonna do any good or not, but I will, because following up on that issue is really important to me. All right. So if there's no other comments, I mean, people are still talking about PMs, but so I want to thank everybody. So then I will just close out then. Thank you all for being on the broadcast. Thanks to Daniel Madison. He had to leave to go off to work, so that's why he dropped out a little while ago. So thanks to Charlie, Chris, Justin, and Daniel for joining us today for the Omnibus period of review. And Ben, a comment you had earlier, I have always enjoyed the word omnibus. I think it's a wonderful word, but I have not yet gotten to ride one of the red ones in London. So with that thought, thank you all for viewing the 2018 Omnibus period of review. In just a couple of 1 hour and 40 minutes, we will be beginning the Organized Play broadcast, hosted by yours truly, featuring Chris Sonstaby, Julius Melhart, and Michael Van Bremen. So I hope you guys will be back in just a little while to see those. There may or may not be beer involved.